Hey, welcome back to Big Board. I think I've reduced my resolution on video, so I think this still should look good, but allows me to have a little more flexibility in terms of time. Saves me having to rush through things. So welcome back. We're looking at the light division and interesting systems here, interesting mechanics and some curiosities. Once we get past the hey, the 80s cold, I want my pastel / want my crayons back map and all the mess. There's some cool stuff going on here. Basically, each turn you roll a d10, and whatever that number ends up being for the side that has initiative, they will receive a number of operations equal to that d10 roll. And so far it's been 3 or 4 in the first 2 turns. And there are 2 operations phases in each game turn, so both parties get to move and fire and do stuff twice. There's when you finish activating, you flip a unit over and it's fatigued, and then it doesn't get activated again until later on. So let's see. What happens then when you purchase a activation, you can activate a single unit or a task force, i.e. a stack, and that activation gives you a number of, I think they're called task points or tactical points or something like that, and it's 3. You get 3 per stack or per unit, and that allows you to move and fight. You have to spend these points in a cost-effective manner. So if you want to move adjacent to a unit to attack it, you're going to have to work out which type of movement you want to use, whether it's tactical, operational, or administrative. Administrative gives you lots of movement points and you can't move adjacent, but nevertheless, move tactically, and then you get to choose the type of attack you want to do, whether it's hasty or prepared, and there's three types. I could probably read this list off to you. Hasty, deliberate, and intensive attack. Now, clearly, intensive attacks, they cost more than a hasty attack. Hasty attack costs 1 point. Intensive attack costs 3. And then all that combat resolution is done. You do some modifications to all the combat values based on the type of unit and the terrain you're in. You're actually going to modify the attack values. They're all going to go up. So even if you're attacking with a mechanized unit into a city, your combat values are going to go up. And I've got these charts here somewhere. Let me see if I can find them real quick. My printout of the charts is not really in a useful order. Let's see if I can find them. So, for instance, this attack value is keyed off of the defensive, the anti-tank value of the enemy. So here's a great example. This guy has an anti-tank value of 1. If we were fighting in the clear, I'd multiply my attacking tank units combat factor by 6. If I was in a city, I'd only multiply it by 3. But if that was if it was 0. If it was 1, then it drops down to 5, and then the city down to 2. But if I had a AT value of 4, then attacking them in the clear hex would only double the combat value. So it's got this way of sort of grading the attack value of combat units. Now, mechanized infantry units also get multipliers, but they're less high. And and then infantry units don't get any multipliers. Now you'll note here that these values here are very high. They are combat support values. The other number is the air-to-air value. And here's the little light shippy doohickey thing. So you can combine those and use them in an attack, but you have to use a task, one of your operations to do that. So that's going to chew up. So if you want to attack this unit with 1 stack and have 2 supporting units, that's going to cost you 3 of your operations. Now, if you roll a 3, that's all you're doing for that phase. If you roll a 9, well, then you have more choices. You can do some other things. But so it's interesting that there's some funky little choices that need to get made here about how you're going to solve the puzzle of taking a particular hex. Now, the first two turns, of course, we're coming into Iran, and we're coming in via the sea and via airlift or paradrop. And of course, airlift has to go into an airfield. So you've got to work out, well, how am I going to capture this airfield? And then how am I going to, and then, next phase, I want to airlift units in. So I've got to have the stacking cleared, because stacking is just 3 battalions per hex. So you've used quite a bit of force to attack the hex. You still want to make sure it's secure. But then the next phase, you want to bring units in. So there's a little risk taking you may have to make if you, for instance, have this coastal defense unit comes and tries to counterattack here. If I don't have enough forces in here, we could be in all sorts of jolly trouble. Now, similarly with naval landings, so you need to control a port. So you can do a coastal landing and then attack. We can do that type of thing, and then gain control of a port. And now next turn, I can bring sea lift units. I can bring, I think, 2 battalions per turn in, or 3 battalions. I think it's 2. 2 battalions in per turn in this port, and there's another port to my left. We can bring 1 per turn in there. There's capacity limits on all these things. So it's a pretty interesting set of interplaying aspects here, I guess. There is an air superiority phase you've got to go through. It's a very simplified, somewhat abstracted effort. There's a reinforcement phase that happens, and it was kind of a shock to the system when I actually saw, I thought everyone was points-based, because the NATO or the US forces are points-based, so you get X number of points, and then you go buy units to bring in. But the numbers for the Iranians are numbers of units. So they received 6 units turn 1 as reinforcements, or turn 2 actually as reinforcements. And so now the good news is it's a 1 unit per hex, right? So these guys are all spread around. So to activate those, I need to have 6 activations, 6 operational activations to get them all going. But what I will probably do is move them into stacks and then just move them that way, right? But once those units start hitting the battlefield, that's going to be a real challenge for the Americans. So there's a lot of forces that appear to be reacting very quickly. I'm guessing, based on moving via administrative mode, that once I got these guys consolidated, it'll be probably turn 4 or turn 5, and it's only a 5-turn game. Probably the last half of turn 4 or the beginning of turn 5, before they actually make it all the way down this road. I think they pay 1/3 of a movement point down this road. And they're going to come down here, I guess, and they're going to just try and prevent the US from obtaining its victory objectives, which would mean taking VPs back from them or reinforcing VP locations so that they're harder to take. Very interesting here that pretty much the US are going to have pretty much the run of the board. Wherever they choose to attack at the moment, they're going to be successful against these very weak coastal defense units. They're kind of like little roadblocks. We've secured 2 of the major VP locations, so we're at 12. We're at 15 VPs at the moment. And it's the middle of turn 2, and we need 35 to be successful, which means you've got to capture pretty much all of these VP locations, which I think I've highlighted to you guys in a prior video. But interesting stuff. If the activations don't happen, you ain't winning as the Americans, and that's just sucks to be you. That's it. So if you're not getting 7 or 8 activations, or 5 or 6 activations a turn, I don't see how you can be successful in this game. And the counterpoint there is for the Iranians, same for them. If they can't move anything to get to you, to do something to prevent you from being successful, or to have units participate in an attack or defense, then it's going to be pretty easy for the Americans to win, and very difficult for the Iranians to prevent that. Anyway, just thought I'd share a little update with you and share just a little snippet of the mechanics here. It is a lighter game once you sort of deal with a couple of funky wording things here and there and realize the difference between operations and what I would call tasks. What do they call them? Tactical operations. So once you get that squared away, it's really straightforward. You just got to remember the stacking rules, and only one battalion can attack out of a hex at a time, and all that sort of fun stuff. And it's Bob's your uncle. It's pretty straightforward. All right, we'll catch up more. We'll do some more and talk to you soon.